What's going on, everybody? Welcome back, and today we're going to be covering a pretty long video talking about taking your toddler to Disney World. We're going to go over tips and tricks and ways that you can survive the Walt Disney World stress with your toddler. Taking a toddler to Disney World can be a little bit overwhelming at times. There are certain times at Disney World where you feel like the day will just be a complete nightmare. There are other days where it will be absolutely magical and everything will happen exactly the way that you want to. So we're going to teach you and our tips for our most recent trip with Asher to Disney World in September to tell you how we were able to make it through our 9-day trip at Walt Disney World with the toddler. Number one thing is take frequent breaks. Taking breaks is definitely a really great thing, especially when you're taking a toddler, because while you might be used to moving around and working your full-time job to be able to afford your Walt Disney World trip, the one thing that you're not going to be used to is the heat. So taking breaks from the heat, especially with your little one, is going to be extremely beneficial. And depending on which time of the year you're going, we're going to use Magic Kingdom as an example, because with kids, it seems to be the most visited place that everybody wants to go. Magic Kingdom has a lot of different things that you can do as to going into the Emporium, just looking around at merchandise, letting your child window shop. By window shop, I mean saying, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. You know, looking at all the cool merchandise, looking at the Magic Man Pluses, looking at all this stuff. The thing about that, taking a break from the heat to do that, is that it is all in the AC. There are also various shows around Magic Kingdom that you can stop by in, like the Hall of Presidents. Now, I will warn you that if you're not a big historian, then the Hall of Presidents is going to be a little bit boring, but the good thing about the Hall of Presidents is that it is all in the AC. Really great thing. A lot of these shows that you can go see at various parks, like if you're at Hollywood Studios and Epcot, there are a lot of rides that are indoors, like Peter Pan's Flight, It's a Small World. Now, while these ride lines seem to be a really high wait time on the standby line and really difficult to get early in the morning for your Disney Genie Plus, these rides are all air conditioned, so they can give you a really great opportunity to get away from the heat while you're in your standby line. Journey to the Little Mermaid is also one of these rides. There are so many rides that are air conditioned queue that'll allow you to wait in the AC to kind of get a break from the heat. The next thing we're going to talk about is planning your day ahead of time. Planning your day ahead of time is very crucial when it comes to going to Walt Disney World, especially with a toddler. Going by yourself on a full adult trip, you can kind of improvise when situations arise. But with a toddler, you kind of feel like you don't really have any crunch time because your toddler wants to go. Okay? I understand that, but we planned our day, our entire trip, day by day, weeks before we even went. So we knew what rides we were going to get on, what time we were going to get on them, how everything was going to play out before we even arrived on Walt Disney World property. It is very beneficial for you to do this because not only does it reduce your stress, but it also lets you have a lot more fun with your kid, and you'll be able to maximize your time in the park. As far as planning your day, there are 3 rides that I would recommend if you're getting Disney Genie Plus to get on at 7 a.m. and go ahead and reserve these 3 rides first, as they have the highest wait times. Number 1 is Jungle Cruise. Jungle Cruise, no matter what time of the year it is, if it's Christmas time, it'll be Jingle Cruise. Any other time of the year, it'll be Jungle Cruise. Always reserve this thing first because it is absolutely nuts and insane to try to get later on in the day. The standby line, when we were there in September, reached a mere 3.5 hour wait time for this. The second ride is Peter Pan's Flight. This is probably one of the most popular rides at Magic Kingdom. This thing is about the same as Jungle Cruise, if not worse. We've seen Peter Pan Flight ride go wrap all the way around the castle. So trust me, it's always best to try to nail these things first. If you're really intent and you really want to ride these things, definitely get these 2 reservations at 7 a.m. Another reservation that you really want to get is Rise of the Resistance. That is the hardest thing to get, but now you cannot use Disney Genie Plus. If you're staying on property, you can make a Disney Genie Plus an individual Lightning Lane selection at 7 a.m. If you're staying off property, you can make the individual Lightning Lane selection at the time when the park opens. There are a lot more high peak rides that if you really want to ride depending on your park day, but we'll get into that more into the video. The next thing we're going to talk about is nap times. A lot of things that a lot of people don't really know about that don't really take advantage of is the baby care centers around all the parks. The baby care centers are really good. We stopped in there a couple of times in 9 days. We only stopped in there 2 different times. And both times we stopped in there to eat lunch. We took our toddler in there because we couldn't find a place to sit down. So we just went in there in the AC, sat down on the floor with our Casey's Corner big old chili dogs, and we just sat there and we ate lunch in the AC. Now, while you can do this, you want to be aware that these places can be a bit packed, especially in the toddler area. There are 2 sections. There is an infant area, which is mainly where you would lay your infants down to really take a nap, and you can turn the lights off and all that good stuff. But there's also a bigger area with TVs and a table where your kids can sit at and just kind of enjoy to kind of de-stress away from being at the park. So definitely take advantage of the baby care centers. Also, if you happen to run out of something, say you didn't pack enough pull-ups, or all of a sudden your baby gets a heat rash on his butt, then this will give you an opportunity to go to these baby care centers. You'll have to pay a little bit of extra cash, but you will be able to purchase these things from these baby care centers, which is really, really beneficial. So if I were you, I would plan for everything that could possibly happen. When we packed Asher's diaper bag, we packed twice as many pull-ups because we didn't know if he was going to have a blowout or we were going to have an accident or he was going to get a stomach bug and start having diarrhea all the time. We always packed the diaper rash medicine. We brought medicine with us just in case he started not feeling well. And we brought melatonin for nap time. So definitely plan ahead when it comes to your kid. Plan for just about anything. Next thing we're going to talk about is the weather in Orlando. While the weather in Orlando is very bipolar, okay? We were in Orlando for 10 days, 9 park days, and during that time, 8 out of those 9 days, it rained. The one day that it didn't rain, it rained everywhere else except Epcot, and we could see the lightning from a distance, but did not really affect our journey into Epcot during that day. What I would do is definitely, if you're going to rent a stroller, I would definitely recommend using Kingdom strollers. I'm going to link them in the description box below so you guys can check them out. You can also get stroller covers when you rent your stroller free of charge. So these things are going to be really great, and I'm going to link also down in the description box below the ponchos that we ordered. We ordered like 10 ponchos to take to Disney World because usually between the hours of 2 and 6 p.m., you'll get these small pop-up showers. Let me give an example of what a pop-up shower is. One day we were at Magic Kingdom. We went to ride Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin. When we went to ride the ride, because we're smart and we pay attention, we covered up our stroller because even though it was sun shining outside, the radar stated that it was supposed to rain within the next 5 or 10 minutes. So we go and we ride the ride. We use our Genie Plus. When we come back out, it looks like a hurricane's coming through. So we're like, holy crap. So we sit there. We didn't have ponchos on us, so we waited for the rainstorm to pass. And then we went and ran to our stroller, put the kid in the stroller with the stroller cover, put our ponchos on, and went back to our day in the parks. 5 minutes later, the rain was gone and the sun was shining again. Okay, this is not a lie. This is probably the most insane thing that I have ever experienced. I live in the South and the weather down here is really nuts, but nothing is like the weather in Orlando. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about, and you're probably going to laugh at me for this, but there is a show right at the park opening, or maybe an hour or so after the park opens, called the Magical Friendship Fair. Now, this is a really cool show as you get to see all your Disney characters, Mickey and Minnie, Anna and Elsa and Olaf, and, you know, all kinds of different characters. And it's a really, really great show, especially if you want to introduce the kids to seeing the characters for the first time when you first go into the park. The show times usually vary depending on the park day, and the show will be canceled here and there depending on the weather. There are a little fireworks towards the end of the show, so if you want to, you can pull the show up on YouTube if you want, and you can see for yourself. But I would definitely recommend, if you're going to check out this show, to check this show out later in the day. Because if you check this show out when you first arrive, you're going to be sitting in a sauna of blazing heat. If you're there in the hottest part of the year, if you're there anywhere between May and September and even into October. We went there and we watched the show when we first got into the park, and oh my God, did we just overwhelmingly just get poured with sweat. It is so hot because the sun is at its full potential and it does not play around. So if you really want to watch this show, definitely skip the first show, but try to get the second or third showing. If you really wanted to maximize your time and you really wanted to get a really great fireworks spot, you can do what we did one day and watch the final show, and then after the show, Mo will order you some dinner prior to the show starting. Go to Casey's Corner, pick it up, and then go to your fireworks spot. And then you can sit there, eat your dinner, wait for the fireworks to start. The last show is usually about 6:30. So if you're in a party, you could have one person hold your spot, the other person go get the food, bring it back. You can all sit there and eat, and you'd have a really, really great spot. The only bad thing about that is, well, we'll talk about that in the next section. The next thing we're going to talk about is fireworks. Some kids enjoy fireworks shows, and the Disney World Nighttime Spectaculars, as you have seen in some of my videos, are really an amazing thing and really a great addition to your Disney World trip. But some kids don't necessarily react the way that you would want to see when you wanted to see insane, beautiful projections off the castle, fireworks in the World Showcase Lagoon, seeing Fantasmic for the first time. Haven't seen it yet. So all of these things, sometimes your kids will not react the way you want them to. So just be prepared. Try to introduce them to some fireworks and stuff before. If you've done 4th of July fireworks out in your backyard, if you went to fireworks shows in the past. With Asher, we've been taking him to fireworks shows since he was about 6 months old. We've been going to Six Flags Fiesta Texas fireworks shows since before he was a year old. He was enjoying those. He hated them at first because they were really, really loud. But then after a few times of doing it, he really enjoyed it. Now, he didn't react the way we thought he would at the Disney World fireworks. Sometimes he just wanted to just sit in the stroller and play on his tablet. Other times he wanted to watch the shows. So if you really want a great, great spot for the fireworks show, I would definitely recommend getting there an hour and a half to 2 hours early. If you're not, the hub is going to be completely overwhelmed. It's going to be completely overrun, especially if you're going to the peak time in December. I would honestly probably recommend in December getting there 3 hours ahead of time if you really, really want a fantastic spot, because these things like to fill up really, really fast. And the bad part about getting a really good spot is you have a really amazing spot for seeing the fireworks shows and having a great experience. But the one thing that nobody really takes into consideration is what happens after the fireworks show. It is probably the most beneficial thing for you to not do what the general public does, which is after the fireworks shows, they leave. Everybody leaves. Everybody goes for the exit. That should not be your play. Do not do that. And I'm going to explain to you why. Because the bus lines are going to be insane. The monorail lines are going to be ridiculous. Everything, because everybody's going to want to get the monorail so they can go to Transportation and Ticket Center to get back to their cars. So that's something we'll talk about here next. Definitely just after the fireworks, go walk around the park, go jump on some rides, because most of the people are going to be leaving. So the wait times on a lot of these rides are going to be extremely low. We have a ritual that after the fireworks show, we go straight to Tomorrowland into Space Mountain, because that's just something we like to ride. It's a low wait time, and then we'll go from Space Mountain to something else like Big Thunder Mountain Railroad or Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. As long as you can get in the line before the park closes, you will be able to ride. The good thing about it is once the park closes, they seem to have a little bit more giddy up when it comes to pushing those lines through with the operations. The next thing we're going to talk about is driving to Magic Kingdom. We went to Magic Kingdom 3 different days. Actually 4 if you want to count the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. Our very first day going to Magic Kingdom, we decided to drive the rent-a-car that we had. Biggest mistake ever. If you can help it, there are some situations when people live off property, they have a rent-a-car, and they're driving every day to the parks. I completely understand that. But trust me, even if you're staying off property, you are going to benefit more by taking an Uber, Lyft, or somewhere to a resort or somewhere close to the park and using the Disney transportation to get there and then catching a Uber or a Lyft back to your hotel. Let me explain to you why. Because when you're going to Magic Kingdom and you drive to Magic Kingdom, it's not like driving to SeaWorld or Hollywood Studios or Epcot or something like that. You don't drive to the entrance of the park. You drive to a place they call the Transportation and Ticket Center. Now, this is where your Uber and your Lyft will pick you up and drop you off. They will not drop you off anywhere near the park. If you want to get dropped off at the park, then you need to be dropped off at the Contemporary Resort where you can just simply walk across the street. But the Transportation and Ticket Center is when you drive is where you go. You have two options. You can either ride a monorail to the park or you can ride a ferry boat. If the monorail is down, then everybody will be required to ride the ferry boat. There are 2 ferry boat lines and there are 2 ferry boats that run. But early in the morning, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for them to get the second one going. So just think about the insane line of everybody trying to get to Magic Kingdom from the Transportation and Ticket Center. There is a lot of people, especially if you're going through a peak time where Magic Kingdom is sold out on that day. You better believe that it's going to be insane. Do not drive to Magic Kingdom if you can help it. Believe me. And it's 100 times worse when you're getting ready to leave. Previously, I'd said something about waiting until an hour, wait until park closing before you leave, because then the lines and everything will sort of be a little bit lower. And this really applies when it comes to going to the Transportation and Ticket Center because that's where it benefits the most. When we left after our one day of driving, we went to the Transportation and Ticket Center. The parking lot was almost empty because everybody had already left, which was really good and really bad. Because they had left the parking lot, we were able to get out of the parking lot, but there was a bottleneck on the interstate getting out of Magic Kingdom going back to Pop. So trust me, we spent at least an hour and a half in traffic, getting out of traffic, and it's a complete and utter nightmare. So trust me, if you can just spend, time is money at Disney World. So if you can sit there and pay $10, $15 to get your family to your resort just by taking an Uber or a Lyft, it'll be a lot better than being stuck in traffic because you don't have to drive through it. You don't have to stress about it. And you don't have to be yelling at the top of your lungs, cussing at the person, telling them to get the hell out of the way. The next thing we're going to talk about is making your dining reservations 60 days in advance. This is extremely beneficial for you and for your family when taking your Disney World trip, especially with a toddler. From the moment that our 60-day mark comes in, we are on the computer and ready to make our dining reservations. If you are staying off-site, you cannot make them 60 days out. You can make them 60 days from the point of where your reservation is. So if you want to have a dining reservation on January 1st, you can make your dining reservations on November the 2nd. Okay, that would allow you, and if you want it on January 2nd, you can make your dining reservation on November 3rd, and so on and so forth. It is very beneficial to do this because although some of these things will be sold out very quickly, like Space 220, the reserved seating for Fantasmic sells out really fast now. California Grill at the Contemporary Resort always sells out really, really fast. These are some of the ones that you're really, really, really going to try to get first at any point in time because these are the big 3 that you have a hard time getting if you don't get them 60 days out. If you don't get them 60 days out, you will not get these dining reservations. They will accept walk-ups here and there, but depending on the time of the year and how busy the park is, it's unlikely that you would be guaranteed a spot at these dining reservations. You can get a simple dining reservation, whether you're at Magic Kingdom, Epcot, or any of the 4 Disney World parks. But this dining reservation is a little bit more expensive than eating your quick service meals, but it will give you a break from the heat. It'll give you a break from the park. It'll give you a break from the crowds. It will definitely give you a much needed break and give you an opportunity to stuff the kid full of food, hoping that it would slow him down some. There are 2 different scenarios I want to talk about because there are 2 different types of kids in this scenario when we talk about nap time. A lot of people get into the parks. They don't want to go back to the resort because they don't want to go through the chaos of having to drive back to the resort, ride back to the resort, waste an hour there, an hour back, or whatever. You don't want to waste time going back to the resort to give your little one a nap. There is a thing that I like to call a Disney World meltdown. Every kid's going to have it at some point in time. Asher was 3 years old when we took him this past September, and in 9 days at Disney World, he had 2 meltdowns the entire trip, which for a 3-year-old is pretty impressive. He had one his very first day because he was overtired, and he had one on his last day at Magic Kingdom because he wanted to mess with Dumbo, which we'll talk about that after this. He wanted to play on the playground. So, your kid will have your Disney World meltdowns. Nap times are exceptionally important, especially for the little ones that want to get really cranky when they're tired. You're going to see these kids in Disney World that are just screaming, and the parents are like, oh my God, can we just not be here right now? So trust me, I understand, but sometimes it's always best to take a little bit of extra time to let your kid take a nap, to let them recharge their batteries before going back into the parks. That's where these baby care centers can come in. This is why we take a very small dose of melatonin into the parks with us, because we give it to him at the same time every time when we go into the parks. And a lot of the times he'll fight it and he'll stay up as long as he can, but eventually he will crash out right around dinner time. We don't let him sleep too long. We usually let him sleep for about an hour and a half. The fireworks normally wake him up. But it's fairly easy to get him back to sleep once we get back to the resort because it's just completely wore out. A lot of times when we're in the parks, my son doesn't take a nap at all. He will wake up as soon as the sun comes up. He'll say, Daddy, look, it's daytime. It's time to get up. And then he'll stay up until we leave the park. That's just how he's always been. So we never stop for nap time because he's always used to going. He's been going to these theme parks since he was born. So he's used to always traveling. He's used to doing this. Not every kid can experience that. So a lot of other normal kids that aren't used to going into theme parks usually would be very beneficial to have a nap time if you go back to your resort for a couple of hours, put them in bed, let them sleep. You get to take an opportunity to unwind as well. And then after the nap time, you wake up and then you go back to the park. It's not a big deal, but this will definitely be very beneficial for you, especially if you want to avoid those Disney World meltdowns. The next thing we're going to talk about is ride height and what your child will be comfortable in riding. There are a couple of roller coasters that the kids can ride. The one is the Barnstormer at Magic Kingdom. This has a 36-inch height requirement, and I think this is probably a really great starting coaster for just about any future coaster enthusiast or any kid that you want to get them into roller coasters. It's really not all that bad. It's a little bit high on the speed side when it comes for the kiddos, but Asher rode it 3 times. The first time he rode it, he was a little scared. The second time he rode it, he was still a little scared. But then after the ride, he was just fine. And he said, that was fun. And then he rode it a 3rd time during Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party at night. So definitely very beneficial. And I think it'd be really good because you'll be riding with your kids, I'm assuming. I'm assuming you're not going to put your kids on a roller coaster by themselves, because I know I wouldn't. But then you'll be there with them. And I think it's a lot of great things that you can do, and they can benefit from that. A lot of these rides at Walt Disney World are specifically made for children, and a lot of these rides don't have height requirements. There are only a handful of rides that have height requirements, like Rise of the Resistance, Guardians of the Galaxy, a lot of these Space Mountain, all of these, big-time roller coasters that aren't originally made for kids. These are usually made for teenager and young adults to be able to ride. So you have to keep your kids away from those rides, yes, but everything else there's no height requirement for. So you can ride all you want to your heart's desire, but just keep in mind of how tall your kid is before you go wait in line, because it would really suck for you to wait in line for 2 hours for Barnstormer only to realize that your kid is 2 inches too short. So always check your height before you get on a ride, because if you don't, you're going to waste your time if you're not able to ride. All right, our last topic, and probably the most important one of all, is stay hydrated. Stay hydrated. I know what people are going to say. You can bring your own water bottle in so you don't have to spend $5 on a bottle of water. But Gatorade and Powerade does not hydrate you. It replenishes your electrolytes. Do not solely drink in the heat, Florida heat of the humidity. Stick to Gatorade and Powerade and think that you're going to be able to stay hydrated the entire time. You need to drink plenty of water. Plenty of water and clear liquids is going to be your friends. When we're having a park day, the only time we don't drink water is when we sit down and eat. And when we sit down and eat, 99% of the time we drink Sprite. It's a soda, but also it is clear liquid. So the chances of us becoming dehydrated from a clear liquid after drinking a lot of water in the parks is very unlikely. So when you want your kid to drink plenty of water, it's quite simple. You just get some flavoring to put in the water, and you give them that, squirt a little of the flavor in there, shake it up in their sippy cup or whatever, give it to them. They won't know the difference. Or you can get some of these sugar-free water bottle fillers, put some water in the sippy cup, pour it in there, shake it up, give it to them. Same thing. It's just flavored water. They'll stay hydrated, and you drink the regular water, you'll stay hydrated as well. It's very beneficial. The last thing you want to do is get dehydrated on your trip, because it is the worst thing to come back from. Every summer when we go to these parks, we always see people falling out, whether it be at Six Flags, especially down in San Antonio at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas, where the heat is just completely insane. It is a dry heat. There's no humidity. There's nothing to protect you from it. You have to drink water and sunblock. You got to use water and sunblock, or you'll just come out looking like a freaking tomato. So definitely want to stay hydrated. You definitely want to keep your children hydrated as well. So definitely want to keep that in mind when it comes to taking your toddler and trying to have the best time on this big vacation that you spent thousands of dollars on. So that's going to do it here. That's our tips for taking a toddler to Disney World. If we should do a part 2, let me know down in the comments below. That's going to do it for us here, man. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and we will see you guys in the next one. Peace.